What is going on, guys? For today's video, I will show you the best VIPER strike of the Mamba build in Path of Exile 3.27. This Pathfinder build offers a powerful, adaptable and reliable League starter poison setup that feels incredible right out of the gate. It combines fast-paced melee strikes and a high survivability with a flask-driven sustain and a hybrid defensive stacking. Unlike traditional poison builds that rely on building duration and attack speed for ramping damage, the VIPER strike of the Mamba front-loads its poison output by delivering a snappy and burst-heavy style that's both satisfying and efficient, combined with the Pathfinder's flask mastery and recovery mechanics, and this build will achieve a perfect balance between the fast clears, boss melting potential and reliable tankiness. If you enjoy tactical melee combat, scaling chaos damage and watching entire packs dissolve in a cascading poison cloud, then this build is just for you. And remember, if you're looking for this build's path of building, then check the link in the description. So, this version of the VIPER strike of the Mamba Pathfinder is all about controlled aggression. At its core, the build leverages poison scaling, the flask uptime and a hybrid defensive dominance for both mapping and boss content. The Mamba variant uses the Pathfinder's Ascendancy synergy to turn flasks into the permanent buffs. The Master Toxicist not only spreads your poison to nearby enemies, but also amplifies your chaos damage on a kill, and the result is that every pack you strike will turn into a chain reaction of poison explosions that spread like wildfire. And to make the setup this powerful, we combine the Petrified Blood, the Sorrow of the Divine and the Master Surgeon to create a recovery engine that's deceptively powerful. The Petrified Blood caps your effective life while reducing incoming burst damage, and then Master Surgeon lets your life flask recovery persist even after reaching the full life, which thanks to the Sorrow of Divine will also apply to the energy shield. This interaction doubles your sustain, allowing you to recover from nearly any hit. The build also scales primarily off the hybrid life, energy shield and evasion. And the best part, it doesn't require any mandatory uniques, making it perfect for League starter or solo self-found. And before we continue, thanks to U4GM, they are a pro website that provides Path of Exile services like cheap currency, then even to trade all types of top quality items and mirrors and much more. They also have more than 20,000 positive comments on Trustpilot, and this website is really worth a try. So make sure to use my discount code KATE for extra 6% off. Next up, let's go over the leveling portion of the build. From level 12 to roughly 33, the optimal skill is the Poisonous Concoction. It's the tested and tried true Poison League starter. We go with it because of the low investment, no weapon dependency and the great early clear. The Poisonous Concoction scales off the flask recovery. So instead of upgrading your weapon early, you actually gain damage from improving the life flask. This makes the starting progression very cheap and extremely smooth. Then we will continue with the Poisonous Concoction until you can either trade or acquire the VIPER strike of the Mamba gem. If you're playing solo, then your first opportunity to grab it is after completing the normal labyrinth. Socket a green gem into the font to obtain the transfigured skill, and once you've done that and allocated the Master Toxicist, then you can safely swap to the VIPER strike of the Mamba. At this stage, start altering your flasks between the clears to maximize the poison spread from the Master Toxicist. Make sure to complete a Fixture of the Fate in the Act 3 to unlock the added chaos damage support Battle Mage Cry, Auto Exertion, Ancestral Cry, and the Fortify support. The Battle Mage's Cry linked to the Auto Exertion is essential. It automatically triggers the Alchemist mark by letting you start the poison chain reaction without micromanagement. And once you've allocated the Whisper of the Doom on the passive tree, then add Despair to the same setup for automatic double cursing. Then from here, the Withering Step is your go-to bossing tool. Use it against rares or the bosses to apply Withering stacks and boost your chaos damage taken. Early aura choices will include the Herald of the Agony for the flat damage and Purity of Elements for the early resistances and the element immunity. And once you transition to the VIPER strike, then swap the Herald of Agony for the Flesh and the Stone for the blind and the maim effects. Then from here, let's move over to the Ascendancy. Your first priority is the Master Toxicist. It defines the entire build. This node not only makes your poisons work to nearby enemies, but also increases your poison damage substantially. It transforms the VIPER strike of the Mamba from a single target skill into a full screen clearing monster. Then next, take the Nature's Adrenaline. This Ascendancy provides flask sustain and the permanent uptime by letting you treat your flasks like the permanent buffs rather than consumables. Then third, the Master Surgeon will provide the build's key survivability mechanic. The life flasks no longer end when you're full, Instead, they keep healing, continuously restoring both the life and energy shield thanks to the Sorrow of Divine. This synergy will perfectly offset the drawback of the Petrified Blood and allow the constant recovery even under heavy damage. And finally, Nature's Reprisal increases the Withering effect and the Chaos Aerial damage by enhancing both the single target and AoE potential. Next up we have the skill tree, and this one requires some attribute balancing early on, so make sure that your gear covers intelligence, the strength and dexterity requirements. However, if you fall short, then spec into attribute notables until upgrades come in. You wanna start with the Poisonous Concoction tree variant while leveling, then respec into the Mamba early after swapping to the Viper Strike. You can use the Faucius for the cheap gold-based respecs if needed, and once you allocate the Whispers of the Doom, then link the Despair to your auto-exertion for the effortless cursing. As you progress, pick up the Charisma to enable your arrow reservation. This will cover your auto-exertion setup, the Purity of Elements and Petrified Blood, then later allocate the Leather of the Pack to include the Flesh and the Stone once your reservation efficiency will support it. You wanna look for Evasion Mastery bonuses by ensuring that your helmet, body armor, gloves and the boots all will have evasion bases. This grants 50% spell suppression and a massive defensive boost. Once you move into the mid and to the endgame, then focus on acquiring the low tolerance Cluster Jewel. These stats will drastically increase our poison damage against unpoisoned enemies, which is perfect for the Mamba's front-loaded playstyle. And then finally, we invest into the reservation efficiency clusters until we transition from the Purity of Elements to the Malevoyance, and then remove them once you've stabilized resistances. Then next we got the skill gems, and the core setup for the Viper Strike of the Mamba will focus on the poison scaling and support synergy. Your main 6 link includes the Viper Strike of the Mamba, Unbound Elements, Deadly Element, added Chaos Damage, Void Manipulation and the Fortify support. This combination provides a strong front-loaded poison damage, increased element effect and consistent fortification uptime. For single target optimization, you can swap Fortify for Empower, or Awaken added Chaos Damage if you have the currency. Utility gems will include the Battle Mage's Cry, linked to the Auto-Exertion, Alchemist Mark and Despair, providing fully automated curses and mark application. Then Withering Step and Ancestral Cry will add burst mobility and damage for the boss phases. Then for auras we will be running the Purity of Element, Flesh and Stone and Petrified Blood, and eventually Malevoyance once element immunity is covered. And lastly, Defiance Banner or the Grace can also fit, depending on your available reservation efficiency. Then next we have items, and this build scales beautifully with both budget and the investment versions. We will start with the Fractured Base to make the crafting more efficient, locking in very strong prefixes or suffixes and spamming essences for ideal mods. Your weapons are the top priority, always keep them within 7 levels of your character during the campaign progression. The vendor recipes using a Rustic Sash and the Whetstone will guarantee a physical damage roll that keeps our early DPS very consistent. Then for daggers, the Pneumatic Daggers will remain the best in slot for the mid-tier progression. You can spam Essence of the Hatred or the Rage to roll high elemental damage, and then craft, the hits can be evaded. Then when it comes to item bases, the Hybrid Evasion and Energy Shield gear is optimal. These bases will provide reliable avoidance and scalability into the endgame. You need to look for Necrotic Armor, Torturous Mask, Phantom Mitts and the Phantom Boots as upgrade targets. Then for jewelry, prioritize low tolerance clusters first, and then scale into the large chaos or poison damage clusters later. Even a single low tolerance will provide a massive damage for its investment. Then flasks are the cornerstone of this build. The Pathfinder turns them into a permanent resource, so we run a saturated Divine Flask for continuous healing, paired with a Sorrow of Divine to double your recovery through the energy shield. And now finally, let's talk about gameplay, because this is where the Viper Strike of the Pathfinder Mamba will truly shine. The build is all about control and efficient aggression. You dart in, strike once or twice and then move on, while your poisons will wipe the screen. The front-loaded nature of the skill will mean that you don't have to stand still, just tag packs and watch them melt as the toxins will cascade across the field. The poison spread scales with density, so the more enemies around, the faster everything dies, and that's why this build excels in mechanics like the Breach, Expedition, Ritual and the Harvest, where tight clusters will boost our DPS. With your hybrid defenses, the Petrified Blood mitigation and the Flask sustain, you'll feel incredibly durable. Master Surgeon will ensure consistent recovery, while the Sorrow of Divine extends that sustain in to your energy shield by letting you shrug off incoming hits, and then in the boss fights, the rotation is again very simple. We activate the Battle Mage's Cry, then use the flasks, then drop Withering Step, and apply few strikes to trigger the poison spread. Position yourself carefully and maintain Fortify uptime, and then from here just watch bosses dissolve in multiple chaos damage. Momentum is the key for this build. The faster you move and the smoother your flask rotate, the deadlier this setup becomes. It's a high skill and high reward melee playstyle that rewards awareness and precision with satisfying DPS and the toxins flowing across the map.